So this is our final of three candidate forums for the role of superintendent. And the goal here is to give you a better understanding of who our finalists are, their leadership style, their philosophy in education, their vision. And so just a couple quick ground rules. And then that starts with, I have questions already that were submitted by the community that I can ask. And then once I get through some of those, then we can go to those on Zoom. If you have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat, and we'll ask questions for those in the audience here in person. The only rule really is questions cannot include any personal attacks. So I'll do a short version of this intro, since everyone here in person already heard it. But Thom Peck has served as the superintendent of Lewistown School District in Lewistown, Montana for the past 6 years. During his tenure, he helped to implement a new special education classroom, a district-wide technology plan, and oversaw the successful planning of 3 consecutive levies in the district's first major facilities bond since 1984. He has 25 years of a career in education. He served as a principal and assistant principal. He served as superintendent elsewhere in Montana. So welcome, Thom. Let's go ahead and do this again. Tell us a little bit about yourself and specifically why you're interested in being Kalama's next superintendent.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody attending. Sorry about the difficulties there. As stated, I'm in my 6th year as superintendent of Lewistown School District, which is in the exact center of central Montana. And it's a school district very similar to Kalama. One of the reasons I'm interested in Kalama is I think smaller school districts have a distinct advantage over bigger school districts. And it's a better fit for me. I think smaller districts provide a lot better opportunities for kids to experience a better school experience, and they can be involved in multiple activities. Also, I think smaller school districts, the teaching conditions for teachers present themselves to have a bigger impact on students' education. I actually started my career in Port Orchard, Washington at South Kitsap School District. So if you're familiar with South Kitsap School District, that's a very large school district. And when I started my career there, it was a huge change for born and raised Montana. I didn't like it. I loved the people that I coached with and taught with, but I felt like there were a lot of kids, many kids that got lost just in the shuffle because of the size of the district. I didn't feel a great pride or a community tightness or cohesiveness that I was more familiar with in Montana or in smaller school districts. So in a way, that was sort of the springboard for me to try to stay focused on smaller school districts. So I have sort of 2 reasons why I would love to come to Kalama. One is personal. My oldest daughter is a math teacher and coach in Cheney, Washington. And even though that's across the state, it does put me in the same state as her, and it's still a little bit closer than Lewistown. My youngest daughter is currently an ER nurse at the University of Colorado, Denver. And it's a huge hospital, and she has decided to go into travel nursing. And in September, she'll be a travel nurse based out of Portland. So Kalama presents personal reason for me to be closer to my daughters. And on a professional level, the second reason is, with the new bond and the facilities and the size of the district and being on the, western half of Washington really kind of interests me and brings back a lot of good memories from the Port Orchard days. I really believe, and I experienced it today, it's not so much where that makes a difference in your professional life. It's who. And I have to tell you, I'm a very student-centered administrator and leader. And I was very impressed with the students today. It was great. They were excited. Here it was the last day of school, and they were just pumped to be in school. And to me, that's always a good sign. When I was talking to kids in elementary school, middle school, high school, you could definitely feel that pride. They wanted to be in school. They felt like they were in a situation where people cared about them, and they were being given the opportunities to be their best. Kids that I talked to, is, you kind of take some things for granted. Every kid that I, met, shook my hand, firm handshake, looked at me in the eye, said it was nice to meet you. I had great conversations, and again, to me, that tells me that the culture here and the kids with the community and the parents, this would be a good fit for me, especially with the size of the district and the new facility.
So one of our community questions here, could you please tell us a little bit about some of the strategies you use to effectively engage with staff, students, the school board, families, and the community?
Great question. I think one of the things that's really, really important for a school leader is to be visible in all aspects of the community, staff, and especially with the students. So there's a couple things that I do to, first of all, attending school events is like therapy for me. You get to watch kids, compete, try their hardest, feel some success, be proud of wearing, the orange and black and representing Kalama School Districts. And so basically every school event, I'm there. And that's not just for the kids, because I think the kids need to see you there. Because first of all, when you're at those events, people know you care. And that's something that you can't just say, but you have to be something in your actions. And that visibility is really important so that people know you care. That's both for the kids, staff, and the parents in the community. I do a couple other things. I don't think we do a great job in education with celebrating our success. And every week I do a radio show in Lewistown called Did You Know? And I kind of think, well, man, people don't listen to the radio anymore. They actually do. I could probably adjust it. Instead of doing a radio show, I could do a podcast or whatever. But that radio show, Did You Know? It always highlights kids and staff and all the amazing things that they do. And we take for granted a lot of times the incredible things that kids do every day. And by celebrating that and doing the radio show or podcast, I think that also sends a great message to the community that we're working hard to make sure we provide opportunities for our kids to be our best. Another thing I do to try to, focus and be in contact with students, staff, community, students is I do a coffee with the superintendent. So a lot of small towns, they have coffee hours and people get together and kind of BS about things. And I want to be a part of that community and make those relationships with those people in the community. And so it ended up I first started out being once a month that I would spend coffee hour with people. Now that's turned into 3 different coffee hours in Lewistown and probably 3 or 4 times a month. And just as an example, you alluded to, we just passed the largest bond issue in the history of Lewistown Public Schools 2 years ago. And the last one that was passed was in 1984. So it's been 39 years that passed a bond levy. And we passed it on 1 attempt. And I got the greatest advice from my coffee with the superintendent. Typically, these coffee with the superintendents are the retired community. And there were a lot of people in Lewistown who told me, like, hey, you're not going to get that retired community vote. Their kids have all gone through school. They don't care about the schools that much. They don't want their taxes to go up. They don't support education because they've done their time. That is about as far from the truth Our retired community has great respect for the school district, and they had really, really good experiences, and it was kind of their way to give back. So one of my coffee with the superintendent guys said, listen, these community forums and these Zoom meetings and those online Facebook things and, you know, things in the paper even and radio and stuff like that, that doesn't make a difference. If you really want to pass this bond, every retired community member does one thing every night. They watch the evening news. So what we want you to do is make a video. You highlight all the terrible, bad areas, infrastructure, building-wise, roofs, classroom space, hallways. You highlight all the worst areas in that 2-minute video and put that on the evening news. And then he looked at me and he said, you do that, we'll pay for it. So we made a 2-minute video. We put it on 2 different TV stations, local TV stations, and we ran it for 2 weeks, every night during the evening news. And the bond passed on the first event. So that visibility or that willingness to reach out to the community and different groups and that kind of thing is really, really important, I think, to being a school leader. I had a great experience. I went down to Port Kalama and I was amazed. I was absolutely amazed at all the activity in different businesses and really incredible employment and stuff like that. I had no idea that it was that huge. Those are exact the type of business partners and partnerships that will help make Kalama go to the next level and provide those tremendous opportunities for our staff and students.
Our next question from the community is, what ideas do you plan to implement to address bullying behavioral issues?
You know, I've done some research on the school district, and I really do believe in their restorative practices. And I think with restorative practices, it goes beyond just delivering consequences. So if there's an incident in regards to bullying and or not treating each other with respect and dignity that we all deserve, then it has to go beyond just consequences. And so restorative practices talks more about the conversations and the changes that we try to promote in each one of those kids. I firmly believe that everything starts with developing relationships. Every kid has a story. And part of our job is to learn those kids' story. And when we develop those relationships, even when they make bad decisions or they bully or whatever, usually those actions are a reflection of something else going on. And it's not until you develop that relationship with kids that you really get to the root of that bullying. And so it's those consequences, but the conversations that you establish and the relationships that you build so that kids know that you really feel, you feel that you love them and you are only doing what's best for them. I can't tell you how many times that, a kid might be upset that they're getting these consequences or we're having this conversation and all of a sudden they break down. Or they might think that it's even unfair. But then when I point out the reason we're putting in all this time and having these in-depth conversations and building relationships, it's because we love them, care about them, and all of a sudden there's more buy-in. The other thing with bullying is it's one of those things where, and proactive practices and proactive justice and that kind of thing is, it has to be done by the staff with fidelity. And what I mean by that is you have to bring a culture where everybody is the ultimate professional. And we're only as good as we are as a team, as an entire staff. And what I mean by that is if a kid goes into a classroom and this teacher treats this policy or bullying incident or whatever this way, but another teacher treats it differently, kids will figure that out in a heartbeat. Kids know how to work teachers. And so if we have to do these restorative practices in a way that we're one team, we're one system, and we all have to protect everybody else's collegiality so that we can give the best benefit to our kids and that we can make progress. And it's not just with bullying. I mean, that's, with all kinds of different, behavior that we want to make sure that our kids are put in a position where they can treat each other with respect and dignity, and teachers can teach kids in a positive way.
I think this next question is somewhat related to that.
Okay.
This person asks, with updated Washington state laws in regard to student discipline, how would you support staff and other students in the classroom when one or more students are disruptive and not cooperative, since class exclusion is very limited?
We're just getting familiar with some of the Washington laws. To me, when I look at the climate culture and the data dashboard, one of the things that really stuck out to me is attendance. And I think we're about 78% attendance, which isn't very good. That's not good enough. First of all, when you're not in school becomes really hard for kids. That's when frustrations and anxious behavior and that kind of thing can happen when they feel frustrated and they a lot of times will give up. Same thing works for teachers and staff. When kids aren't in school, then they have to go back and try to get that kid caught up, and that can be frustrating for the teacher, it can be frustrating for the other kids and that kind of thing. So the one Washington law that comes to mind is, that you can take as many mental health days. Well, I firmly believe the best place for kids is at school. That's where they are the healthiest mentally, emotionally, and socially. And that's on us, though. We have to give kids reasons to want to come to school. And one of those reasons that we can do is not letting other kids disrupt other kids' rights to a great education. There doesn't necessarily have to be exclusions. I think there's other strategies and things that you can do to create a better learning environment for every kid. We talked a little bit about a new, we have a special ed separate classroom for our really high needs. We call it our CARES classroom. And it's smaller groups of kids. There's a teacher and 2 paras in there. And these are for our high needs kids. And it's a self-contained program. They still do a lot of things within the regular classroom. But here's what that classroom has done. It's had 2 specific effects. And this might be, our most vulnerable kids where this would come into play. One, those kids are getting back up to grade level because they're getting more personalized instruction, set program that meets their needs, and it's not in a regular classroom where they can progress a lot higher. What it also does is the students in that regular classroom, because they don't have to teach this broad spectrum of behavior or academic needs, it helps them to teach and give those other kids a stronger program when they're in the classroom. So that's one thing. It's not an exclusionary thing, but it's a program that meets the specific needs of those kids. We also have a similar classroom that we call the STAR program, and that's for behavioral kids. For the most part, it's amazing how 1 or 2 kids can totally disrupt the climate in the classroom. 1 or 2 kids. And then that affects the other 25. But then if you have special, classrooms or special strategies to eliminate those 1 or 2 disruptive kids, everybody else benefits, including the disruptive kid. So it's not exclusion, and, but I have to be honest with you, there are times when if a student is that disruptive, to me, I can justify not letting that kid disrupt the classroom for the other kids, and there might be some exclusionary practices that we would have to use.
So I think this next question touches on a conversation that is going around across the country. And it is, what role do you see parents and families playing in the education of their children?
Parents are the very first teachers, coaches, mentors for all their kids. They've been there since day one. We have to be partners with parents. And a lot of people will refer to things like parental rights. Just like any right, those come with responsibility. And so with parents, again, it starts with attendance. We need to partner with parents to make sure that they're giving every effort to get their kids to school. We need to partner with parents to make sure that we're meeting every need that student requires in order for them to be successful in school. We need to partner with parents so that we have their support, so that when kids go home and we have certain expectations, that they can meet those expectations. As a dad, I have to be honest with you, through some really difficult times as a dad, I depended on teachers. I depended on coaches. And for me, if it wasn't for those teachers and coaches and that partnership that we developed as a dad, I don't think my kids would have turned out as well as they did and would have got through as many tough times as they did. I went through a very difficult divorce. Divorce is difficult. Every divorce is difficult. But I can tell you, if it wasn't because of those teachers and coaches and those mentors my kids had at school, it wouldn't have been as well. It would have been that as well. So that partnership is actually very, very exclusive. But those parental rights always come with parental responsibility.
Our next question from our community is, what role do you see public schools playing when it comes to topics like gender identity?
I really feel that gender identity is a family thing. It's something that with your religious leaders, your counselors, that kind of thing. When kids are going through gender identity or issues that they're kind of struggling with, which kids go through a lot of issues that they struggle with, and we as a school need to treat them as Kalama kids. Those are our kids. It doesn't matter what your gender identity is, LGBTQ, your religion, your race, your creed. That doesn't matter. All of our kids that come to Kalama schools are ours. And we're all in this together. I think some of that stuff, to be honest with you, has been politicized and it's been divisive, not only in schools, but in communities and even across the state of the nation. That's a family decision, personal decision. That's a decision that involves religious leaders and counselors and those kinds of things. Sometimes when we're expected to deal with some of those family or personal decisions as a school, we get out of our lane. And I can just tell you that it doesn't matter what your gender identity is or any of those other factors that come into play. You're all Kalama kids, and you're all going to be treated with dignity and respect. And we all plan to put you in the best possible position to learn and to be your very best.
I'd like to open questions up if anyone here in person has any questions, or if you're on Zoom, you'd like to ask any questions. Anyone have anything?
We'll jump at once.
While you're thinking your questions, let me ask. There's a question that has to do with staff conflict, staff concerns. How do you handle that when a staff member approaches you and has an issue, has a problem?
first of all, you value that input and you commend them for their courage. I would hope that I would establish relationships so that staff would be comfortable coming to me with the idea that how can we make Kalama School District better? One of the things that I actually plan and promote is in Lewistown, every month we have faculty council. And how faculty council works is the representatives from, like in Kalama, I would have like 2 representatives from the elementary, 2 representatives from the middle school, 2 representatives from the high school. Once a month, we meet and we go over ways that we can improve the district. Now, sometimes that turns into concerns, problems, issues that staff might be having. And we do it together, elementary, middle school, high school together, because we're one district and we depend on each other. And so sometimes those concerns that might come from the elementary school might be the same concerns that the high school might have or the middle school might have. And so by having faculty council, we address those concerns, issues in an open format with the whole idea of how do we get better? How can we improve? And then once we address those issues and things that we're going to do to try to address those concerns or issues or problems, then we make notes and we take meeting notes and minutes, and then we send those out to the entire staff. So it's very transparent and it's very, very open, and it's always geared around the concept of how do we get better. I think it's been really effective. I think one of the things that we can do for teachers is to make sure they have that voice, that they do have an impact on making the school district better. And we have to make sure that we always give teachers that voice and that opportunity to make sure that it's a school-wide improvement.
So Kalama as a community is a very proud community. Tradition is important. At the same time, it's a changing community, a growing community. As a leader, how do you tackle change? You have a certain style of leadership when implementing something new or embracing change. Where do you fall on that?
The one thing you can count on is change. So that's the one consistent thing I think in life. And to me, it doesn't make sense to fight change or, to not embrace change. Change, if done right, is always a growth. It's always a way to get better. So I embrace change, kind of welcome that change. Again, things are changing very, very rapidly, it seems. And I think you have to kind of take the approach that when change happens, we're going to make sure it's changed for the better. Every change, every decision that we try to make is always around the one mantra of what's best for kids. And we talked a lot about things today that sometimes it's too bad, but a lot of decisions that are made are based on financial reasons. And to me, I think, to try to tackle change, you have to worry about the financial stuff secondary and look at what's best for kids. And if that, sometimes that costs money and you have to kind of weigh those options. But the very, very first train of thought, the very first step should always be what's best for kids. So change is one of those things that as long as it's best for kids, then I want to embrace it. I want to move that forward. And, I think there's a lot of things that Kalama is doing right now that are kind of responding to change. Just today, my understanding is we had educators from Vancouver, and they were out checking out our tiny house and our CTE programs, because that's a change that's been great for Kalama. And now there's other school districts that want to copy Kalama. So those are the types of changes that are best for kids, and those are the kind of changes that I want to embrace.
Before I get to my next question, I just want to give another opportunity if anyone has any questions. How do you feel a successful athletics and activities department or programs affects a school?
I think it's huge. I was a former activities director, former coach, and especially right now, coming out of COVID, like I stated before, the best social emotional learning programs we have is activities. You know, when kids were isolated, that's what stressed everybody out. That's what made kids anxious. That's what, you know, caused kids to go into some depression and those kinds of things. In Lewistown, when we finally got back to school, the whole behavior had changed even within our kids because they were so glad to be back. Even when we were in restrictions, I told this story at dinner tonight. I had 8th and 9th grade wrestlers coming to me that when we were fighting all the restrictions and distancing and sanitizing and masking and stuff like that, these wrestlers came to me and said, I don't care if I have to wrap myself in saran. Let me wrestle. And it's not so much about the sport or the activity. So it's not so much about the music or the drama or the speech and debate or the academic competitions or those things. It's about being around their friends. It's about being around teachers, coaches, mentors who they look up to, who they believe in because they believe in them. And so that whole activities and athletics and things that we do within schools to get kids together, that's vitally important for them to be healthy mentally, socially, and emotionally.
All right, our next question submitted for our candidates is, are you familiar with Washington's Alternative Learning Experience Program, or ALE? And if so, what are your thoughts about it? We have a great program here at Kalama. How would you make it better?
I'm not that familiar. You know, I think, again, what you try to do is personalize education. And there are definitely alternative learning experiences that fit kids, different kids, and different alternative learning experiences. I really believe that the best education doesn't always occur within a classroom. In fact, many of the best educational experiences are outside the classroom. They're outside. They're more hands-on. They're with partnerships with colleges and universities and businesses and those kinds of things. When kids have those kind of experiences, then education becomes much more purposeful. And if they see a purpose and a relevancy behind those experiences, you can challenge them and take them to the nth degree as far as rigor. Because they see a reason. A lot of kids will have a hard time if they're in a classroom and turn it into a worksheet because it doesn't seem that relevant. There's not a purpose behind it. But if you get them out in different experiences outside of those classroom walls, activities are a great example, actually. You know, I understand earlier this spring, we took a trip to Washington, D.C. Those kinds of experiences or outdoor learning experiences or apprenticeships or internships with businesses and those kinds of things are what true education should be about, because kids do that as a real relevance and a real purpose.
So you may have, this may be something that you've spoken about already tonight, but is there a particular initiative or program, or maybe it's just within a leadership style, but something specific that you would like, if you were to get this position, something specific that you would like to bring with you from Montana and your superintendent role there to Kalama School District?
You know, my leadership style is very student-centered, and it's always based on building consensus and partnerships. So a lot of that is creating a culture where people, including kids, parents, and especially staff, feel like they have a voice, that they make a difference in the school district. And I'm always quick to listen first to people's different viewpoints and suggestions and opinions. And then from there, I always listen so I can try to understand rather than just respond. And so I think my leadership style is one that creates that culture where everybody is focused on getting better and better, and they all feel like they have an impact. When I look at the data, the very first place I would start is attendance. We have to get kids to school, but we also have to give kids reasons to want to come to school. One of the things I do with Lewistown is, I have a group that I meet with student leaders, and kids have the best idea. They really do. And what's also great about kids is they're very honest. Like if they think that I'm doing a terrible job or like we got to get better at this, they'll tell me. I mean, so I think when kids feel like they have a voice in their what happens in their school, then they're more reticent to actually try harder in school, to be more of a leader and push themselves in the classroom and outside the classroom. So I think at first, my first thing would be to try to increase attendance. We talked about activities. When I looked at the percentage of kids that are involved in activities, that's low to me. And to me, we're not reaching the kids, the more vulnerable kids, to get them involved in activities, to give school more meaning to them. Right now in Lewistown, between our middle school and our high school, almost 90% of our kids are involved in at least one activity. And then when we ask how many are involved in 3 or more, trying to keep them busy, then it goes down to about 78%. But that's still a very high percentage. So our job is how do I get that other 22% more involved so that they can be an active participant in their education. And that starts with giving them a voice and opportunities, and that also includes staff giving them a voice and opportunities. So that attendance and that activity part and that voice part would probably be my most prevalent things to start off.
Well, we're just about out of time here, so I want to give one last opportunity. If anyone has questions, I don't think any one person does. Let me see. It looks like someone's typed in the chat here. Okay, thanks for this question, Renee. He says, it'd be nice to see the leader of the school district attend sporting, school, and community events. If elected, would you attend our school events? Would you also take the time to interact with not only the staff at our schools, but the community, students, and parents?
Absolutely. Watching kids in different activities and events and sports, it's actually it's therapy for me. I mean, my biggest joy is watching kids be successful, watching kids compete, watching kids, work hard, watching kids work together and be that collaborative and representing Kalama. I firmly believe that through all those events and activities, and that goes down to kindergarten. If I'm having a bad day, I usually go over to the elementary school and watch kindergarten classes, or the best is watching recess. That's pure joy. And that is a constant reminder to why I'm in education, is watching kindergartners at least. And the other thing, I mentioned this earlier, one of the things as an educational leader is that parents, students, staff, they need to know you care. I mean, they really, it starts there. And when you attend, I plan on attending every single event. So, and I do that in Lewis. and we're a slightly larger school district. But I think when parents, teachers, staff, coaches, and especially kids, when they see you at events, they know you care. And that's not something that you can put on a mission statement or in a handbook or something like that, but that's actually something visibly that sends a message to the entire community and school district.
Okay, well, last question since we're at 7:30 here. It's maybe a bit of a get to know you question. Obviously, you have experience as a superintendent, and as a superintendent, you're juggling quite a bit. So what do you do to recharge yourself, maybe away from work? What do you like to do?
Watch kids. That's the whole reason I went into education is kids are, again, when we went through COVID and we learned this real quick, we leaned on kids more than ever. And I can look back on the toughest times in my life, both personal and professional life, and who I depended on and who helped me get through that was kids. And I can use COVID as an example. Kids are way more resilient, flexible, empathetic. They're literally inspiring to me. And when it comes to my personal life, it's spending time with my family, my own kids. And if my daughter's going to be a nurse and a travel nurse in Portland, then I love, I call both my daughters, at least twice a week. And I love listening to, their struggles, things that they're going through or triumphs that they might have, or, my oldest daughter's married and I'm counting on my youngest daughter to get married. So I love hearing about her love life. And, the cool thing about kids is, if you keep telling them certain things, they start to believe. And that makes you feel like you made a difference. So as long as I feel like I'm making a difference and I'm helping kids do their best, then that's really the best therapy. I love to play golf, and it's be a great place to play golf. So I love to play golf, but it's usually not so much about the golf, but about the people that I'm playing golf with. I love to hike, doing family things. On Monday, my youngest daughter and my stepson, my wife and I were taking an Alaskan cruise. So again, it's not the Alaskan cruise that I'm looking forward to. It's spending time with my family. We have a saying we stole from the book The Help and the movie The Help. And when the maid is working with the little girl, she talks to her and she tells her the same saying all the time. And we do it. We have it on bulletin boards and reader boards and stuff like that in Lewistown. You can come to Lewistown right now and you'll probably see it. And this maid is talking to the little girl and she says, "You are smart, you are kind, and you are important." And I remember I had a kid ask me, "Why do you keep telling us that? Why do you keep telling us that? Why do you keep telling us that?" Here's why we keep telling kids that. Tell them enough, they start to believe it. That's what it should be about.
All right. Well, that'll do it for our time this evening. Thom, thank you so much for coming out and answering these questions. Thank you for those that are here in person and for those of you joining us online. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening. Really important to us, so thank you.